The Jeff Davis 8, Louisiana, 2005 to 2009. Between 2005 and 2009, the rural parish of Jefferson Davis in southwestern Louisiana became the site of a disturbing series of deaths. 8 women, all young, poor, and struggling with addiction or sex work, were found murdered and dumped in the swamps and canals surrounding the town of Jennings. Officially, the women were listed as victims of a serial killer, but those who studied the case and those who lived through it aren't so sure. To some, this is a case about one predator operating in secret. To others, it's a case of systemic rot, corruption, cover-ups, and killers hiding in plain sight. To this day, no one has been convicted for any of the murders. The victims, known collectively as the Jeff Davis 8, remain symbols of unresolved injustice in a town haunted by secrets. A pattern of death. The first body was discovered in May 2005. Loretta Lewis, 28, was found floating in a canal outside Jennings. Her death was initially classified as a drug overdose, despite suspicious bruising and water in her lungs that suggested she'd been submerged while still alive. 5 weeks later, the body of 30-year-old Ernestine Marie Daniels Patterson was found in another canal. She had her throat slit. 2 local men were arrested for her murder, but charges were later dropped due to lack of evidence. In 2006, a third woman, Kristen Gary Lopez, 21, was found, and then a fourth, 26-year-old Whitney Dubois, in 2007. Each body showed signs of decomposition consistent with being left in the water. None of the victims had been reported missing with urgency, and no autopsy definitively listed cause of death, often citing undetermined due to advanced decomposition. From 2005 to 2009, 4 more women were found: Laconia Muggy Brown, Crystal Shea Benoit-Zeno, Brittany Gary, and Nicole Guillory. The remains were usually discovered in drainage canals, on back roads, or in fields just outside of town. Each woman had ties to the others: friends, acquaintances, or even relatives. Many lived in the same neighborhoods, stayed at the same motels, and dated the same men. Most chilling of all, several of the victims had told friends and family they feared for their lives, and some had confided that they were acting as police informants. Serial killer or something else? The Louisiana State Police and FBI eventually labeled the Jeff Davis 8 a potential serial killer case. It fit a loose pattern. Women from similar backgrounds, found in similar conditions, over a tight time span. But private investigators, journalists, and victim families have pushed back. They argue that evidence suggests not one killer, but a group of people, possibly operating with help, or at least neglect, from law enforcement. A 2014 investigation discovery documentary, Death in the Bayou, and the groundbreaking book, Murder in the Bayou by Ethan Brown, exposed deep cracks in the official narrative. According to Brown's reporting, many of the victims were connected to a local drug and sex trafficking network with known ties to police. Several officers had been accused of misconduct, evidence tampering, and even sexual relationships with the women, who were later found dead. In another case, key witnesses were never interviewed or were dismissed as unreliable. One local resident, who knew several of the victims and cooperated with investigators, died under suspicious circumstances not long after speaking publicly. Fear and silence gripped the community. Mistrust and missteps. The police department in Jennings was under constant scrutiny during the years the bodies were being discovered. Several officers were fired or resigned amid accusations of misconduct. Yet, no solid suspects were ever named, and no charges stuck. The community's trust in law enforcement eroded as more families of the victims claimed they were stonewalled, dismissed, or misled. The sheer number of inconsistencies raised red flags. Autopsy reports that lacked detail, evidence that went missing, and crime scenes that were never properly secured. One victim's body was discovered less than a mile from the home of a local sheriff's deputy. Still, no one was questioned at length. Was this incompetence or intentional misdirection? In 2009, the FBI joined the case, forming a multi-agency task force. But despite years of investigation and a growing body count, no arrests followed. Eventually, federal attention waned. Public interest faded. A case without closure. Today, the Jeff Davis 8 case remains technically unsolved. The official line maintains that an unknown serial killer may be responsible. But in Jennings, many residents believe the truth is more complex and more sinister. The families of the victims continue to demand transparency. They've held vigils, spoken with the media, and begged for the release of sealed files. They want answers and accountability. Whether the killer or killers will ever be brought to justice remains uncertain. What is clear is that the Jeff Davis 8 weren't just failed by a murderer. They were failed by a system unwilling or unable to protect them. In a region known for its swamps and slow justice, the murders of 8 women remain buried in mud and silence. The question still lingers like the humidity in the Louisiana air. Who killed the Jeff Davis 8? And who helped them get away with it?